Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to it's a long time coming, but welcome back to an episode of Backcourt Press. As some of you may know, I am your main host, Hunter Medic, joined by my co-host, Zach Vinci. Say hello.
What's up, everyone?
It's been a while, you know.
I know. Long semester, had to get it out of the way, and get right back into it in the middle of the season. So very excited.
Exactly. We wanted to come back in the beginning of the season, obviously, as an NBA podcast would, but with all finals and both of us being at good colleges and working on our grades and everything, it was definitely difficult to try and do it then. I mean, even our Instagram page has been slacking, but we're back. Now that we're both back. I know you're not back at college yet because you're probably on the line for a little bit, but I'm back and we're ready to get back into the podcast. It's been a long time coming. We're ready to get back into it. And what better way to come back than to do our all-star teams? Because, I mean, it's perfect timing. The NBA is getting crazy hot recently with amazing games. I know we just saw Trae Young and Anthony Simons have an incredible battle the other night. Players like Nikola Jokic putting up ridiculous numbers. LeBron James having his best 10-game stretch in years somehow.
Oh, my God.
And DeMar DeRozan is somehow an MVP candidate.
Oh, my God.
I mean, this NBA season has been so great.
There's so much I want to talk about. This is insane.
I know. It's been too long, so now we have so much to talk about.
All-Star season is one of my favorite times of the year. I actually was very close to getting tickets to go to All-Star weekend this year, but I think me and my dad are postponing and go next year instead in the beautiful city of Utah, or the state of Utah. They're the same thing.
City of Utah.
I want to go see Gobert in his home element, but I love All-Star weekend. It's so exciting. And it's a good chance for a lot of guys who don't really get the recognition that the media they don't get the recognition from the media that they should. And I think the All-Star selection is a great time to be able to give them that recognition.
Yeah, I completely agree. And with everything going on this season, obviously this will be more talked about in future podcasts because we'll go through players that have made a name for themselves due to all the health and safety protocols, things that are happening. We don't even know if, I mean, with the All-Star game being in about a month or just under a month now, some players that we named today might not even be available because it seems like players are just dropping left and right. So might name a player that's a starter and we might not see him play just because of health and safety protocols.
That's why for my selections, I have 4 alternates in the East and 5 in the West, just because who knows who's going to be playing. Like I remember last year, Anthony Davis got selected but didn't play. I mean, Devin Booker had to come in. I think there was another one.
Even though he deserved it anyway.
Yeah, Mike Conley came in, who also didn't really quite deserve it, but you never know who's going to come in, who's going to be out. I got a couple guys that I selected that are injured right now. Who knows if they'll even be back by February, but who knows? That's why I got to have a lot of names. It's good because there's a lot of guys performing, a lot of great players who deserve to get in. Not all of them will end up getting in. So at least we have a good pool of players despite COVID.
Yeah, I mean, when looking at, I'll start with this, primarily the guard play in both conferences. I mean, it is ridiculous. I wish that the NBA would make it a 15-on-15 roster because just so that those extra players could be added because there's some names that we're going to name that wasn't able to put into the All-Star game that I think completely deserve an All-Star bid.
In particular, my alternate guards in the West are just absolutely insane. And I hate that some of them are missing out on the game. 2 of them in particular.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is though. With so many players playing so good recently, we're here to give credit to the All-Star snubs that aren't going to make it.
Absolutely.
So
let's get
without further ado, 4 minutes and 30 seconds in, Backcourt Press is back. Let's get started with our Eastern Conference. If that's cool with you, we'll start in the Eastern Conference.
Absolutely.
I think we'll just go starters to reserves. We'll just go straight down the list. I'll start off with my first All-Star guard. I'm pretty sure, you'll have him here too. I don't know why he is listed as a guard because he has played power forward and small forward for the past about 3 or 4 years. But according to some Bleacher Report articles, the worst offseason signing is going to be an All-Star starter this year in DeMar DeRozan of the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, I included him in a forward spot because screw the NBA and whatever
Honestly,
they
yeah.
listed him as a guard. Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine have started nearly every single game for the Bulls this year as their 2 guard spots. DeRozan's listed as a power forward on Basketball Reference. And from what I've watched him play, I don't think I've seen him play at the guard spot once this year.
I don't either.
So screw NBA.com. I have him listed as a forward.
Okay.
Even if that makes mine inaccurate when it comes to the actual day of the game, I'm kind of just doing this how I would select the teams, not how I think they're actually going to go down. And I think DeMar DeRozan is a pure lock as an all-star starter. Put him at guard, forward, whatever you want to play him at.
Oh, this is interesting though, because you have him as a forward, which means that someone's missing out as an all-star star. That's interesting.
Yep. He's had a monster year. A lot of people have him top 5 MVP right now. I think I have him somewhere 6 to 8 instead of top 5, like many people do. But he's having a great year. I mean, you just look at some of those buzzer beaters he hit last week.
Ridiculous.
That was all over the internet. 2 3-pointers to win the game, both falling backwards, double coverage. Absolutely crazy. The Chicago Bulls are the best team in the East right now, something I don't think anyone expected coming into the season. And a huge part of that is because of DeMar. 100% deserves it.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's averaging 27, 5, and 4.5 this season. I mean, I remember so many people were talking about, the Kawhi and DeMar DeRozan trade. And even though I'm not going to say DeMar DeRozan's anywhere near Kawhi because it's still Kawhi Leonard and he's injured.
Good.
Let's be honest. A lot of people didn't agree with the trade because it was DeMar DeRozan for Kawhi Leonard. Now DeMar DeRozan's, he's just proved everyone wrong every single time he's been put in a situation. I mean, I feel like he's had incredible seasons recently with the San Antonio Spurs, but people haven't talked about because the Spurs, and no one talks about the Spurs just like this year. So,
go ahead. Yeah, the one thing I want to say too that I think gets overlooked about DeRozan is how much of a part Greg Popovich played in his development. If you look at DeRozan in Toronto and DeRozan right now in Chicago, they're 2 completely different players. DeRozan in Toronto was at times a black hole on offense where he gets the ball. Really, the only thing he's threatening to do is score. Wasn't a great playmaker, wasn't really a great leader. That was Kyle Lowry's job. His goal was just out there to score. A couple years in San Antonio, they missed the playoffs. He didn't really get much recognition, wasn't an all-star there, but his playmaking and his skills as a leader and as a passer improved tremendously, which I think you got to give a lot of credit to Greg Popovich for. He comes out this year on Chicago's fantastic leader. He's one of their best playmakers, one of their best passers. He does so much for that team. So I want to give a lot of credit to Popovich and the Spurs coaching staff for bringing out what I think is currently the best ever version we've seen of DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I said my first starter. I'll let you go next when it comes to the guard position.
So, yeah, since I have him as a forward, I still have 2 guards on the board. While we're talking about DeRozan, might as well mention his teammate, who I have as also as a starter, Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, I have as a starter. He's just putting up insane numbers this year, and his efficiency too is one of the most eye-popping things to me. He's been hovering around 50% from the field on this season. I think he's shooting around. You can confirm this. You normally have the numbers. I think he's shooting around 40% from 3 as well. Just such a great offensive player. He's really been doing this for years now in the Chicago system, but he's finally got the team around him, and you just see what's happening. He's one of the top 5 players in the clutch this season, which I think is something a lot of people
next to DeMar DeRozan.
Exactly. And like we said with DeRozan, the Bulls are the best team in the East right now, and I definitely think that the 2 of them both deserve to start. LaVine finally getting what he's deserved. I feel like he's always been overlooked with Booker and Mitchell and Beal and Brown and those guys, where I feel like finally now that he's got the team around him, we can put them on the same playing field.
Yeah, I completely agree. This year, he's averaging 26 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists on 49.7% of the field, 42% from 3, which is just ridiculous, and 86% from the free throw line. So you have him as a starter. I have him as a toss-up with someone else because I put DeMar as a guard. So him and one other player that I'm sure we'll talk about very soon. I had them as a toss-up for the starter. I ended up giving the other player the starting position. I have Zach LaVine as my first bona fide first guard off the bench. You could put it either. I'm not mad that you put Zach LaVine in the starting lineup by any means. He deserves it.
I mean, if DeRozan is counted as a guard and he's a lock to be a starter, then I could see LaVine being on the bench. But if DeRozan is where he naturally plays at forward, then I think LaVine should definitely be in that starting lineup. We'll just got to see how the NBA does it.
Exactly. I completely agree. And then moving on so we talked about both Bulls players. Bulls have been playing great. Shout out to Lonzo Ball. Shout out to Nikola Vucevic for being the worst defensive center in the league. Should not have
Shout
traded
out
him for
Patrick
Wendell
Williams.
Carter. Yeah, I wish P. Will was playing. Honestly, I think it would have been funny. But hey, Wendell Carter, we're probably never going to talk about him, so deserves his respect this year. He could have been an all-star.
Great season.
No, I'm kidding.
Great season.
But the other guard that I have next to DeMar DeRozan is the guy who just put up 56 points the other night in my starting lineup. I have Trae Young as my all-star starter. It was really a toss-up between him and Levine, who was going to get the starting gig over DeRozan.
Yep.
I wanted to give it to Trae Young just because he was so disrespected last year. I remember me and you having the same podcast last year talking about all-stars. And I don't think either of us had Trae Young as an all-star, averaging 27 and 10.
Yeah.
Just because the team was bad. But I think this year with, the team is slightly better with a lot worse of a team around him because DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, John Collins, these guys have all been somewhat on health and safety protocols all year. And still Trae Young is putting up absolutely incredible numbers. He deserves all the respect in the world. Real quick before you go, 28 points, 9.5 assists, even a steal a game, which he's not a good defender at all, and 4 rebounds. Take it away for Trae Young.
Trae Young is the only player in the NBA who's top 3 in scoring and passing. He's top 3. At least that was a couple days ago. I'm not sure if it still is that way, but I'm pretty sure he's at least still top 5 in both scoring and assists. First, I also have him as a starter. I have him and Levine as my 2 guards, and then obviously DeRozan as a forward. 100% should be starting. I feel like Trae Young is probably one of the most disrespected players in the NBA today. And I think people are overlooking him because the Hawks are 12 in the East right now, which is another thing that's a total overreaction by people. The Hawks were also in the bottom 5 in the East at the All-Star break last year. They made the Eastern Conference Finals.
Eastern Conference Finals.
If you take a look at them, they're 12 right now. However, they're only 2 games out of 7th, and they're 4 games ahead of 13th.
The Eastern Conference is so
literally
good this year.
It could take a week or a week and a half for the Hawks to jump into the top 7 or 8. And then another couple weeks after that, if they keep up that level of play, they could jump into the top 5 or 6. I have no doubt that this team is going to be in that final 8 playoff. They'll definitely make the play in 100%. I think they could finish the year top 6 in the East still. They're literally right there. I mean, you got the Cavs starting to fall apart with all their injuries now. The Wizards are falling out of it. I think they're better than the Hornets. So I think the Hawks are going to jump up pretty soon. And I think Trae Young has a huge part to do with that because he is their whole team right now. And it's sad to watch. Like, he is doing everything for them on the offensive end. He's scoring the ball. He's creating plays for them. He draws so many double teams and passes it out to the right guy. And it's just heartbreaking to watch these guys just miss shots. It honestly feels like I'm watching Curry from last year with the Warriors, where Curry literally had to do everything for the team and everyone else just could not pick up the slack. That's what I feel like watching Trae Young and the Hawks this year. But that shouldn't take away from how incredible Trae Young's been. I think you could make a great case that Trae Young's a top 10 player in the NBA right now. He's fantastic. And I just think people hate on him a lot just because they don't like him, because he's taken on that villain role in the NBA. But I think Trae Young is a lock for an all-star starter this year. Total lock.
Yeah, I mean, you said it better than I could have. He's just incredible as a player. I mean, as a passer, I think you could make the argument that he is the best passer / facilitator in the league. The amount of double teams he's able to draw, and we see people play him like they play Steph Curry, like going all the way out to the logo. And next thing you know, he's driving in, and he has arguably the best floater game in the league as well. So I mean, there's no way of stopping Trae Young. He's just great.
His 3-point shooting has also improved this year. This is statistically his best year shooting the 3 ball, which I know that was like his biggest attribute coming into the game. And it's something coming into the league. And it's something that I think people have really the one aspect of his game people have overrated over the years is how good of a shooter he is. His shooting numbers have never been that stellar. He's just always had great range. But this year he's finally shooting the 3 ball with the best in the league. And I think that's contributing as to why he's having such a great season as well.
Yeah, so I'm happy that we both have him as a starter because I believe he completely deserves it. I hope he gets it. After getting hated on quote unquote last year, he definitely deserves it.
Absolutely.
So let's move on
Absolutely.
to our forwards now, because you might have a little bit of a snub in the All-Star starters with DeRozan being there. Because
We'll see.
for my forwards, I'll talk. I mean, to me, I've got both Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo as both of my forwards.
The two obvious ones,
Yeah,
for sure.
it's
Those are my
I
other
don't
two
know
as well.
how. Yeah, okay.
Those are my other two as well.
Oh, that's okay. So that's interesting. So I mean, we don't have to. I don't think we have to give that much of a description about why either of them should be All-Star starters. Now let's say this: let's say we'll narrow it down to three: DeMar, Katie, and Giannis. Who do you believe should be the captain of the All-Star team?
Durant will get it.
I agree.
Personally, I think Giannis is having the best season out of all players in the Eastern Conference right now. I actually probably would have Giannis as my MVP pick at the moment. I think he's getting
Ooh.
I think he's getting overlooked a lot because he's doing the exact same thing that he has done the last 3 years. His numbers are pretty much the exact same. You watch him, he does the exact same stuff. He's the same player he was the last year and the year before, and he's just as good. And I just think his game is so impactful. And you watch those Bucks games, and like early in the season they were missing a lot of guys and they were losing games and people were overreacting because of that. In the last 2 to 3 weeks, last month even, the Bucks have been, in my opinion, the best team in the NBA besides probably Golden State.
Yeah.
Giannis is just absolutely carrying that team. I would also like to mention Drew Holiday is having a fantastic season as well. I don't have him in my all-star selections or my alternates, but I just wanted to mention Drew Holiday, I think, is having the best season of his career since he left Philly in 2012. But I like this Bucks team a lot right now, and I think Giannis is just captaining them to the finish, just like he did last year. So he would probably be my MVP pick right now. So I think he
I
should be the captain, but Durant will get it because it's Kevin Durant leading the league in scoring, having an insane season.
Honestly, I would just love to see DeMar DeRozan, because we've already seen Giannis draft. We've already seen Durant draft. To see DeMar DeRozan draft would probably be one of the coolest things ever.
That would be crazy.
But really quickly, I pulled up a post that we made on our Instagram page from November 9th, 2021. So this was about 2 months ago now or something like that. And we made a Backcourt Press NBA Power Rankings on the 9th of the 21st. And I remember you, when they were doing horrible, put the Milwaukee Bucks at 10th on your power rankings because they weren't having a good year. They started off.
I think
really
they were
slow.
under 500 at that point too.
They were like way below 500.
Yeah.
And I remember a bunch of people in the comments being like, "Why is Milwaukee there? Like, I don't understand it." And now they're back to being a top 3 team in the East, undisputed. And I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Honestly, one of my favorite parts of the NBA season is always the first 2 weeks and seeing everyone's overreactions. Like Washington being the number 1 team in the league at
Dude, they
2
were
weeks
goated.
in. Like let's be real here. People need to understand that the first 2 weeks of the NBA season means absolutely nothing usually, and you have to look at context. Obviously, the Bucks were going to be a top 2 or 3 team in the East. They were just injured. People don't look at context, and it's frustrating sometimes. But absolutely, Giannis and the Bucks are just as good this year as they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, you said it spot on. So that rounds out your starting 5, I believe, in the East.
Yep. Trae
with all of
Young,
them.
Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Kevin Durant, and Giannis. So
The only difference we have is I have Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan as my guards, and then to round out my forwards with KD and Giannis, I have none other than Joel Embiid, running my center spot. I mean, once again, another player I don't really think needs to be talked about that much. I understand if I'm interested to see what ends up happening, because obviously, DeMar is listed as a guard and a forward, so we'll see who gets it there. But with Joel Embiid, he has just been out of this world again this year. He's having another MVP type season, averaging 27, 11, and 4 assists, another all defensive team stats with 1.2 steals, 1.4 blocks. The 76ers are 21 and 16 without obviously Ben Simmons suiting up yet for this team, with Danny Green having multiple only minutes in his statistics in the box score showing. I think that's the funniest thing ever. Danny Green's just out there getting paid to do cardio. But I mean,
he's a decoy. He's a decoy. He draws the defenders when he's in the corner.
Exactly. So, I mean, you have him coming. I believe you probably have him as your first forward off your bench.
I have him as my probably my number 1 man off the bench. And honestly, the only reason I have that is because of games played. I think he's only played about 70% of the games of it, 70 to 75% of available games for the Sixers, whereas all the guys I have in my top 5 have played pretty much every single game this year. And also his efficiency is a little bit lower than it usually is, but I'm not really holding that against him. He really doesn't have another reliable offensive option this year. I mean, he never really has because Simmons has never been that good on offense. But the one thing I want to mention about Embiid is that he has the Sixers as 5 in the East right now, which I think is insane because I'm a Sixers fan and I've watched them a lot this year, and we're not good. Like the Sixers aren't good, aren't good this year, and it's kind of frustrating to watch a lot of times. Tobias Harris has been horrible this season, absolutely atrocious. It hurts to watch him. You just mentioned Danny Green. Oh, he's useless out there.
Hey,
Totally
Tyrese
useless.
Maxey's been solid.
We'll get there in a second. Matisse Thybulle, such a good defender. I love that. He's probably worse on offense than he has been the last 2 years.
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything on offense. Honestly, the only bright spot other than Embiid has been Tyrese Maxey, who you just mentioned. I love Maxey. Maxey's insane, but he's still a developing young guard. He's not a reliable second option yet. And then also Andre Drummond, baby. Oh, get out of here.
I love Georges Niang.
Andre Drummond has been fantastic for Philly this year. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Joel Embiid, great season so far. He's only been getting better. I think he was just player of the month this past month or something. Embiid's he's only improving at this point in the season. His numbers definitely indicate all-star starter. He's got his team there. Like I said, the only thing that's holding me back from putting him up there is games played.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So you have games played as like that factor for him not being a quote unquote starter. The way I looked at it when I was doing my list is like so many players are missing time this year that it's just like I looked at it where it's like unless you have missed a severe amount of time due to an actual injury, like when I say severe amount of time, I mean like a Bam Adebayo amount of time. Like I'm not holding it against Embiid. I still believe he probably will be a starter. I'd be shocked if the NBA let Joel Embiid come off the bench in the All-Star game. I just feel like that's not a thing Adam Silver would let.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's Joel Embiid. He deserves to just be there no matter what. It's not like when you're making when you're looking at the end of someone's career, it doesn't say 3-time All-Star starter, 5-time All-Star reserve. He's an All-Star either way, and that's all that matters.
Exactly. I have a feeling that he'll get the nod, and I just have a gut feeling that Trae Young's going to get snubbed as a starter. He's going to be coming off the bench. Because if they do count DeRozan as a guard, I don't see any way that Embiid isn't going to be that third starter with Giannis and Durant. Sorry.
Well, speaking of Butler, we can move on to bench players now in the All-Star. Yeah, why not? Absolutely. So, do you want to start with? We'll start with guards because I know you have we
haven't talked about any of my bench guards yet.
Yeah, we have not. I have Zach LaVine on my bench guard as one of them. So let's go to you. Let's go for it.
So my top bench. So the way I did this as the bench, I did 2 guards, 3 forwards, and then 2 wild cards.
I did the same.
Okay. So my first guard, I think a lock to make the All-Star game, but I don't even think he's in starting consideration right now, is James Harden. Yep. He has had a fantastic last month of the season where he's looking like a true top 10 player, arguably top 5 player in the NBA. He's been amazing in that stretch. I got to see him play personally a couple weeks ago. He dropped 35, 10, and 12 or whatever. Like, just incredible numbers. He's so fun to watch. This is the James Harden we've always been used to seeing, except he started off the year slow, and that's the only reason he's not going to start.
Yeah, I have James Harden on my bench. I have Zach LaVine on my bench as well. So those are my 2 guards off the benches. James Harden, Zach LaVine. I don't think we need to talk about why James. Sure, he's struggling this year. His struggling is still in a borderline top 10 player, if not a guaranteed top 10 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it except James Harden's been incredible, especially in the absence of Kyrie Irving. I mean, when Durant doesn't play, that team is just Harden's team, and we've seen them win. I know, like Christmas Day, we saw them just absolutely it was the James Harden show. James Harden has just carried this team.
Patty Mills.
There. Oh, that is true, Patty Mills. But yeah, I mean, there's no disrespect to James Harden here. He's a top 4 shooting guard of all time, top 5 shooting guard of all time. Yeah,
Arguably top
that's
3.
all I have to say.
It's discussion for another day.
It is
Yeah,
discussion.
definitely James Harden. So my other bench guard
This is
that
what
I
I'm
have,
interested in this.
you're gonna like this, is Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yes.
I am
Darius Garland, respect.
fully on the Darius Garland bandwagon this year. He has the Cleveland Cavaliers playing so well when he's out on the floor. Fun fact, he's the closest one of 2 players, we'll get to the other one in the West, that is close to a 50-40-90 this season. His efficiency is through the roof. He's such a good playmaker. He's such a good scorer. He gets to the rim. He can shoot the ball. He is exactly what this Cleveland team needs out of a point guard for the future, and he's got them there. He had them as top 4 in the East before his injury. 100% to me. Guaranteed, should be in the All-Star game, no question about it.
Yeah, it was hard for me to put him over James Harden and Zach LaVine. I have him as my top wild card spot. I mean, how could I not? You know how much of a Darius Garland fan I've been for years now. I mean, I've been saying, a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people agree with me when I was saying he was better than Colin Sexton, and here we are now.
Now I do.
I've said Darius Garland and Colin Sexton were the next like Portland Trailblazers backcourt, and like Damian Lillard and CJ. And I still will ride with that, even though I hate Damian Lillard, but somehow love Darius Garland. Don't worry about it. No, Darius Garland's been incredible this year. When you watch the Cleveland Cavaliers play when he comes off the court, and even when it was Ricky Rubio, I know Ricky Rubio was putting up great stats as like a playmaker, but now that, sad to see him get injured. He could remember when he was an All-Star for the first like 2 weeks of the season. People were like, "Is he going to make the All-Star game?" Now they have some random small white guy, number 6, I forget his name, coming off the bench. Peng Ghost, I think his name is. But when this team runs through Darius Garland, he has given so many easy buckets to center Jarrett Allen and power forward Evan Mobley. I mean, if you would have told me last year or in the offseason that when Lauri Markkanen goes to the Cavaliers and runs the small forward position, that Darius Garland could make him look like a decent small forward, I would have thought you're crazy. And here we are, as the Cavaliers are almost, I hope they make the playoffs. I mean, I think they're a definite play-in team. So yeah, Darius Garland's a fantastic player. I've loved him ever since he got drafted. I said give him 3 years, and in his 3rd year, he's going to be an all-star. So I'm happy.
Yep.
My prediction is right. So now let's move forwards. Move on to the forwards. I know we just mentioned one who you almost said was a starter.
We talked about Embiid. So I got 2 more of mine. You still have 3, I believe.
I still have 3. Yeah. I'll start with
talk about Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, that's the obvious one.
That's the lock. I mean, if it wasn't for games played, I think he'd contend as a starter. Having a great season. Before he went down, he's had a couple injuries. I know he just got re-injured again a couple games ago. But when he's playing, the Heat are so good. And the Heat are one of those teams that like you really need to see them with Butler and without Butler to notice the impact he has on that team. Like, it's not always super apparent when you're watching the Heat with Butler, like how good and how much he impacts the team. But when you watch them without Butler, they don't even look like a playoff team most of the time. I don't know. I've been a huge Jimmy Butler fan for years. I can't really say much new on him that I haven't already said already. He's such an impactful offensive and defensive player. I still think he's a top 3 or 4 defensive wing in the NBA. His mid-range shot is beautiful. He can get to the rim. Fantastic playmaker, fantastic rebounder. I think a top 3 or 4 leader in the NBA. He's got the Heat as one of the best teams in the East without Bam for most of the season. Total lock to me. I mean, games played is his only negative right now.
Yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. Shout out, if we're going to talk about the Miami Heat, I think this will be the only time we talk about the Miami Heat. No offense to Bam Adebayo, just hasn't played enough to be an all-star this year. Would be an all-star if he played. I have him as like a snub player, but I wouldn't even count him really as a snub just because if we know what Bam Adebayo can do. While we're talking about the Heat, shout out Gabe Vincent. I love Gabe Vincent so much. I think he's such a great player. I just want to say that much.
Can I shout out Max Struss too? Because Max Struss
oh my gosh,
23 points per game over the last 10 games, having a great stretch. Breakout season, Max Struss.
And they're paying Duncan Robinson so much money
Yeah.
for Max Strus to be better Duncan Robinson.
Duncan Robinson sucks. I'm just going to say it right now. Duncan Robinson is horrible. He can do one thing, and once teams figure that out, he can do 0 things now.
Yeah, we'll move on to our next forward. So we both have Jimmy. You have one more forward left. I have 2.
Yeah.
I have a Boston Celtic as my next forward, and you agree with me. Okay, cool. I have Jason Tatum as my forward. He's
my third.
The thing is, when I was looking at NBA.com, I noticed that Jaylen Brown is not listed as a guard/forward. He's only listed as a guard. Okay. And I think
that's fair.
I would have liked, if you're going to put DeMar DeRozan as a guard/forward, put Jaylen Brown as a guard/forward, because Jaylen Brown actually plays both positions most of the time. Yep. This is the only, because I have Jaylen Brown as one of my wild card spot, or I have him as right outside my wild card.
Yep.
But I want to, if say Jaylen Brown was a forward, could you see an argument for Jaylen Brown over Jason Tatum for the All-Star game this year? I think it's way closer than a lot of people may think.
So, yeah, I have Tatum as my third forward, and I have Jaylen Brown as my third man out. So my third alternate.
Okay, so you don't have him close.
Somewhat. I think all my alternates are pretty close. Okay. I mean, Jaylen Brown's having a great year. The thing I don't like, this is a problem that both Brown and Tatum have, is the fact that they're both ISO players, and I feel like neither of them operate very well within the offense. Neither of them can really make plays for anyone but themselves. And since Tatum's played the whole year and Brown's been in and out, I think it's more apparent that when Brown's out, how good Tatum is.
I agree.
And we haven't really seen the reverse of that yet. I just don't think they play great together. And I really think that the Celtics should look to move Brown, just because they're 2 similar ISO scorers for me. But yeah, that's really all I got on it. I just think Tatum is overall better at what he does than Brown is. I think he's a better rebounder. I think he's a slightly better playmaker, although not a very good one. I think he's a better defender, which I think is a very unpopular opinion, but I think Tatum is a better defender than Brown is.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes down to it, I still think he's the better scorer, even though Brown has put up some pretty nice games recently. So I will always take Tatum over Brown unless Brown can make another jump in his game. But I guess I could see the case because Brown has had a more efficient season than Tatum so far.
Yeah, I got Tatum as my other forward as well. I mean, he's just put up good numbers. One of the reasons why I was very hesitant to put Jaylen Brown anywhere like near a wild card spot was just because I don't think the Boston Celtics deserve 2 All-Stars this year.
No.
Even though they're both so good, it's just hard to make a case that as the team as a whole to have to. I mean, Tatum this year, he's doing his thing. I know he started off really struggling, I believe, but he got right back into it. 25 points, almost upward. If I'm going to round up, 9 rebounds a game. If I'm going to round up again, 4 assists a game, 1 steal and 1 block. Jason Tatum, I think he's still a top 3 under 25 player.
He's still under 25? What?
I don't know. Actually, I'm going to check that. He's probably 19
no, I
years
think
old.
he is. I think he's still like 23 or 24.
He's got to be 20. He is still 23. He turns 24 in a couple months. That's ridiculous that Jason Tatum is this good and he's still under 25. But I mean, yeah, I have Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler as my 2 of my 3 forwards off the bench. Yep. You pretty much summed it up perfectly with Jason Tatum and how good of a player he is.
The one before we move on from the Celtics, the one thing I want to say is they're missing one piece. Imagine if this team had Kyrie Irving, playing healthy Kyrie Irving. Imagine that, dude. They screwed up so big. They screwed up so big in trading him for Kemba Walker. That should go down as one of the worst moves of the last decade, if not maybe the worst. Like, I don't care what you say about chemistry. They gave that team 1 playoff together. 2 years, one of them Kyrie was injured. So 1 playoff. And then they shipped him out. Like, sorry. Little rant there, but Celtics just a joke of a franchise. Sorry. That joke of a franchise.
Since Bill Walton made the friend. No, Bill Walton and Whitford made the friend. No, I'm kidding. I cannot say that. But yeah, no. Hey, outside of drafting, there's a reason that oh my God, I forget his name. The old
Danny
GM before.
Danny Ainge.
Yep. There's a reason Danny Ainge isn't the GM anymore.
Yeah.
So I'll go to
Yeah.
I'll go to my final forward now.
Mhm.
This is a man I believe deserves a lot of respect, and I think he deserves to be an All-Star this year.
Mhm.
I have Jared Allen as my third forward coming off the bench. He has
So-
been. You where do you have him? Do you have him in the wild
I have
card?
him as my number 1 wild card, so I do have him in the game as well.
Love it. So we could talk about him. I mean, with the Cavaliers sitting at 21 and 17, and Jarrett Allen putting up 17, 11, and 2 on 1.5 blocks a game. I mean, so we were two people that said we didn't know about re-signing him because of Evan Mobley, and Evan Mobley still played incredible next to him. But we're not gonna. That's not overshadowing what Jared Allen has done. He's turned himself from a Clint Capella to a Rudy Gobert with offense, like legitimately in like one. No, he's not nearly as good as Rudy Gobert defensively. We both know that, but he has that same impact for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. I think Jared Allen deserves so much respect. And I'll never forget when we were reading the James Harden trade. It seems like the Cleveland Cavaliers gave up nothing. It's just the Nets knew they had to ship Jared Allen out in the deal. And the Cavaliers were like, oh, we'll take him for nothing then. Yeah. And they were like, yeah, sure, because Jared Allen should be on Houston right now. And he's not. He's in Cleveland, absolutely succeeding with him and the 17 power forwards that this team has. So go talk about Jared Allen.
The thing that always gets me about Jared Allen is check his age right now. I don't think he's older than 23. I'm pretty sure he's 20.
He is 23.
He's 23. I feel like he's been in the league for like 5 years now, and he's still this young. He's only getting better. Like 23, so that's like Bam's age basically. And you hear
Jason
all this
Tatum's
about yeah, and you hear all this about Bam like being the next up and coming center, which is true. Bam's incredible. No disrespect on Bam. But Jared Allen's right there, man. 17 and 11, such a great defensive presence. He has the what I always call the Bill Russell effect, which is he scares defenders from coming into the paint just because of his presence there, because he's such a good shot blocker. Like his blocks don't show how good of a defender he is.
Yeah,
he's a great rebounder. He's so efficient. He only takes good shots. I've always disliked Jared Allen coming into this year because the one game where I watched him in person, it was a couple of years ago. They played the Sixers, and Joel Embiid made him his son. And I think Allen ended that game.
Something else.
I'm pretty sure Allen ended that game with like 2 points and 4 rebounds and like 1 of 12 from the field. And I was like, this guy's horrible. I was wrong, and I'm so happy that I was wrong because Jared Allen has been fantastic this year. He's just as big of a reason as the Cavs becoming good as Garland is and as Mobley is, if not a bigger reason than both of them. Him and Mobley together form the best defensive front court in the NBA. I think you could legitimately argue both of them as top 5 to 7 DPOY candidates. Allen protects the paint while Mobley does everything else inside for the Cavs. It reminds me a lot of the 90s Rockets with Olajuwon and Otis Thorpe down below. Very similar dynamic there. Obviously, Allen's no Olajuwon, but I think he 100% deserves an all-star spot. And I'm glad that both me and you have him and Garland in there because I think the Cavs should have 2 guys.
Yeah, like when I was saying about the whole thing with Jaylen Brown, how he shouldn't go there just because the Celtics are bad. No one expected the Cavs to be good like this at least, and I think they deserve 2 all-star spots. And you could even, I mean, as a snub, you could I wouldn't mind if someone mentioned Evan Mobley's name as an all-star snub because he also has just been incredible as a rookie. Honestly, give it 1 more year, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about Mobley as an all-star reserve next year.
One quick thing before we move on. Evan Mobley, in my opinion, there's only 2 guys with a better DPOY case than him, Gobert and Draymond Green, and I don't think there's anyone else. I think he's that good, and for a rookie is ridiculous for how good he is on defense. He is gets in passing lanes, can play on-ball defense, can play off-ball defense, great rim protector. He's so high basketball IQ down there, and he's so athletic. He has no defensive flaws, and he's a rookie, which to me, you never see that from a rookie. Okay, that's it about Mobley.
Yeah, I mean, and the Rockets selected Jalen Green, right? So let's go to the second. So now you have your first. We're
11 for 11 right now. We have
the same exact, just different.
I have a feeling we're going to differ on this one.
I'll let you know what.
I have a feeling we're gonna differ on this
do you
one.
have an injury replacement? I just want to know if you have an injury replacement as well.
No, I have my 12, and then I have my 4 alternates, who I think any
Okay.
of them have
Choose.
deserved enough to be in a spot, but I don't think they're
Okay.
quite as good as my 12.
Okay. What's it called? After we do our last wild card, choose one of them to be your injury replacement. Because I want to see if we go 13 for 13 with
Okay.
the players that we have. Because
Okay.
I have one injury replacement that I'm
Okay.
very interested. So my wild card is a guard
Me too.
in a mid-tier Eastern Conference team.
I think we're gonna differ.
We're gonna differ.
I was between these two guys for my last spot.
I was too, and I ended up going with Fred VanVleet to be my
Let's
final
go.
wild card
That's who I
spot.
did. That's who
Did
I
you really?
chose.
Yes.
Fred
It was
I
very
chose
hard. I have
just
LaMelo
over
Ball.
LaMelo. Yep.
I have
just
LaMelo as
over
my
LaMelo.
IR replacement.
Yep. He was my 13. He was my 13.
Oh, I'm gonna be honest. The NBA is not going to let Fred VanVleet be an all-star over LaMelo Ball. That's not gonna happen.
It's so sad, but I think he deserves it.
But yeah, I mean, you could start with this because I love the Toronto Raptors. I remember when so many people were so confused about the Scotty Barnes pick because they were like, Fred VanVleet can't be an actual point guard. And here he is just proving everyone wrong, playing the most minutes in the NBA because Nick Nurse, this team is so bad when he's not on the court. Go for it.
It's so satisfying for me too, because for the last 2 years I've been saying that Fred VanVleet is not a shooting guard. He's a point guard, and he's been playing out of position his entire NBA career. And that's why I was so keen on the Raptors moving Kyle Lowry last year, because I knew as soon as they did, VanVleet would step up as the team's bona fide best player. I even said last year that he was their best player when everyone was like, oh, Siakam. I think I put it when I was doing like my best Raptor of every year. I had VanVleet for last year, and everyone was like, oh, Siakam, Lowry. VanVleet is the man for this team, and it makes me so happy to see him doing so well. He's averaging 29.5 points per game the last week or 2 weeks, something like that. I think like 5 to 10 games. And he's just carrying this team. Toronto is on a roll right now. I think they've won like 4 of their last 5 or something along those lines. Scotty Barnes is fantastic. And VanVleet is fantastic. OG Anunoby is getting there. I still think he's got a lot of potential, and he's had flashes of greatness this year. But VanVleet is just so good. Like, great on-ball defender, especially for like a small guard. Fantastic playmaker. Can score from anywhere on the floor. He's just does so much for this team, and he's so impactful on the floor. Like you said, I think his on-off rating is one of the best in the NBA.
Yeah.
From when he's on the court to when he's off the court. I think he would be very much, even though he was my last guy to make it in, I really think he would be a snub if he didn't make it.
Because I mean, you pretty much said everything about him. So I'll go over to the point guard that the Warriors should not have taken. James Wiseman's still going to be great. Don't worry about it. LaMelo Ball is averaging 19 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. To me, I know you said it would be a snub if VanVleet doesn't make it. I think I'd be okay with, honestly, either of them. I'd be surprised if the NBA didn't put LaMelo Ball as an all-star because the amount of views that they'll get just from LaMelo. It's LaMelo. LeVar will sit courtside. Things will get crazy. I mean, LaMelo's been incredible. The Hornets, I mean, he's made Miles. I wouldn't say he's made Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges is one of my players I have as a quote-unquote snub. But, I mean, you can see how much of an impact LaMelo has had on Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, Kelly Oubre, who was atrocious last year, is getting open threes this year because of a guy named LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo is still an incredible player. If he doesn't make it this year, he will probably make it guaranteed for the next 8 to 9 years every single time. I don't see why he wouldn't, but it's a toss-up this year, and I would just love because I have a feeling that this will probably be the only year Fred VanVleet will be in this much contention for it. So I'd love to see Fred VanVleet get it this year, just so then he has it in his resume. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that I was really between VanVleet, Garland, and Ball. I feel like I had to put 2 of them in there, and I had the spots for 2 of them, and I didn't have the spots for all 3. And I think the difference for me, what separates Garland and VanVleet from Ball, is I just see a noticeable shift from their team when they're not on the floor. Like I said, I think Toronto is horrible without VanVleet, and we've been seeing that Cleveland without Garland and even without Rubio too is just nowhere near the team that we saw earlier in the season. when I watch the Hornets and LaMelo's not on the floor, they're still a decent basketball team. They've still got
Ish
Terry
Smith.
Rozier balling it
Ish
up.
Smith is
Yeah,
goated.
yeah, but they've got other players who pick up the slack for LaMelo, and maybe that's not really LaMelo's fault that the Hornets are just a better team than the Raptors or the Cavaliers. I just feel like Garland and Van Vliet carry more, like do more for their specific team than LaMelo does, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah.
LaMelo definitely great player, no disrespect on him. He definitely deserves to be an all-star this year, and just because I don't have him in it doesn't mean he doesn't deserve it. I'm sure he'll make it. I'm sure he
Yeah,
will.
I'm sure he will too. I just would be surprised if the NBA
Mhm.
allows him not to make it. So he's your first snub, quote unquote, off the bench.
He
I have
was,
him as my IR replacement. So we
Yep.
both went 13 for 13.
We had the
That's
same
very
team with
that's very impressive because I was saying that like the Eastern guards are super hard to choose from because when I was looking at Fred VanVleet, Garland, Lamelo, I even threw Jaylen Brown and Bradley Beal in the mix of those two guys.
Okay.
Because I think that's a straight up toss up. If someone said Bradley Beal, I wouldn't even be mad. Like I really wouldn't. Bradley Beal has struggled. He struggled to start the season. Recently, he's been very, very good again for the Wizards. So it's like if he can kill it again in the next month, I wouldn't be surprised if Bradley Beal makes it. I mean, I kind of would be surprised actually, just because I don't know. It seems like Bradley Beal gets disrespected one year, and then the next year he'll get respected, and then this year again he's disrespected. So it's like he's another player I had as one of my snubs. I would like to hear your snubs though, because I think your forward snubs are interesting.
My four alternates. We already talked about LaMelo was my top one, and we talked about Jaylen Brown, who was my third.
Okay.
So my other two, I didn't even have Beal in there.
Okay.
I've never been a huge Beal guy. I don't know. He's never really wowed me watching him. I don't think I've ever even had him as a top 5 shooting guard in the NBA. There's other guys that I think are better than him.
And they're showing it this year.
So my number 2 snub, who was my top forward snub, and I was debating between him and Jared Allen at times, is Domantas Sabonis. Who the only reason
I didn't even think of him.
I didn't put Sabonis in there exactly because Indiana is horrible this year. They are arguably the worst team. Like if you look at just like the games they play, the margin of loss they have, like Indiana is a bottom 5 team in the NBA, which hurts me because I had them as my underrated sleeper pick for this year. And I also had I had Sabonis as an underrated sleeper MVP pick this year.
Oh my gosh.
We're going to ignore that for a second. But despite that, Sabonis has been great this year. And I don't think everyone's overlooking it because of how bad Indiana is. But he's averaging, I think, like 19 and 12 and 5 or something. His efficiency is incredible.
Spot on with the stats.
He's shooting, I think, 58% from the field and like 41% from 3. Or is that one's off, isn't it?
Hold on. 41 or
31? Is it 31?
It's 30.4. So if we round up, it's literally 58, 40, 31.
Never mind. His 3-point shooting isn't as good as I thought it was. But he's such an efficient player. He's a great scorer. He's a great rebounder. He's a great playmaker. He does so much for his team. He's just not meant to be the number 1 option on a team. Like, that's just not his role. He would fit so well as a number 2 option.
Bring him
Jason
make
Tatum
him more center.
In Boston.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that.
I've said this pretty much this entire year that I think Tatum and Sabonis would be a fantastic fit in Boston if they shipped out Jaylen Brown.
Golden State. Imagine we got him as our center.
Kuminga, Moody, Wiseman, and a first.
Wiseman, Moody, and 2 firsts. I don't want to give up Kuminga. I love Kuminga so much.
But yeah, no, it's hard. I think Sabonis is definitely deserving of a spot this year. I really doubt he'll get one unless COVID ramps up or there's a lot of injuries. But to me, he was the top forward snub.
Yeah, if there's a forward that's in health and safety protocols, I don't see why he doesn't make it.
Right? I can't think of another case for anyone else above him other than the guys we put ahead of him. Mm-hmm. My fourth alternate, which I think was a little bit lower than the rest, I just kind of wanted to mention him, is Chris Middleton because he continually gets absolutely no recognition. I don't think I've heard his name mentioned once this entire year in the media. He's doing pretty much the same thing he's been doing the last 2 years. I saw a stat where Milwaukee, when he scored 20 points, Milwaukee is like 12-1 this year or something like that. He's doing everything he always does, and he's just such a slept-on player because everyone overlooks him for Giannis. But he's a really good defender. He can score from anywhere on the field. He's really clutch. He's huge in the final moments for them. He's just doing everything he always does for Milwaukee, and just no one gives him recognition. He won't be an all-star, and honestly, I don't even think he deserves to be one compared to all these other guys.
Yeah.
But I just really wanted to mention him because he doesn't get mentioned at all.
His efficiency has fallen off a lot though this year. If you look at it, like like last year he shot 48% from the field, 42% from three. This year he's shooting 42% from the field, 36% from three.
Yeah.
I'm happy you mentioned him because I have a player like that who I think deserves to be talked about in OG Anunoby, who I think should be in, like, he's in this similar situation where no one's going to talk about OG, but yet he's averaging a quiet like 25-5 or something along those lines.
Is he really?
It might be a little lower than that.
I think
Siakam's been, I got it right here actually. He's averaging 19, 5 and 3 and 2 steals as well.
It's another one. He's played less than half of the games for them this season.
Yeah, I want to shout him out. I think he's been fantastic this year when he has played. And trust me, next year, a different forward will be taking the spotlight in Toronto, because I think we're going to be talking about Scotty Barnes and Evan Mobley as 2 All-Stars next year, foreshadowing for a year from now. But
absolutely.
Yeah, that wraps up. I don't have any other names in the Eastern Conference that I want to mention. If you're set with the Eastern Conference.
Off my ear. I'm all set with the Eastern Conference. We talked about pretty much everyone I wanted to talk about. Let's move on to the West.
Yeah, let's go for it. So as I'll start with the guards because I'm interested to see who you have as your secondary guard to the best point guard, undisputed of all time. No, I'm kidding. Oh, don't get me started. Stephen Curry. I mean, what do I have to say? It's Stephen Curry. Sure. Oh no, he had 9 points 2 games ago and 14 points last game. Dude, we won the game when it was. Stop it, people.
Listen, Stephen Curry is having his worst statistical season since he won MVP for the first time, and he's still an undisputed top 3 player in the NBA. Which
undisputed top 3 MVP right now.
He does everything. Like, oh my God, this is exactly what I was trying to say last year when he had absolutely no help. That he just needs a little bit of support, and he's doing so much worse this year than last year statistically. But they're so much better because he provides the spacing. Literally, his presence on the court is all you need to be a great basketball team. You just got to fill out the rest of the team with shooters and good defenders. That's it.
And you have arguably the best defender in the league and arguably a top 10 shooter this year next to him in Jordan Poole.
And Andrew Wiggins, who's been fantastic as well.
Yeah, trust me. We'll talk about Andrew Wiggins.
But yeah, Curry is – I don't want to hear about Curry. Curry is still a top 3 player in the NBA. He single-handedly is the reason the Warriors are as good. Okay, double-handedly because I want to. Draymond Green is a huge reason.
Yeah, we'll talk about Draymond.
We'll get to him, but Stephen Curry, 100% is not even a question. He'll be the captain too. I don't see anyone getting more votes than him in the West.
Yeah, I think it's between him and Jokic for who's going to get the captain spot.
LeBron.
Just
because of fan voting.
I honestly hope out of those 3, I hope it's Jokic. I'd love to see Jokic draft a team around himself. I think that'd be so fun. But I mean, if anyone's, Steph Curry, I still have him as I'd probably have him as top 2 in MVP voting this year. The MVP is so close though between like 4 or 5 guys right now. Steph Curry. We don't have to explain that. Now, who is your secondary guard? Because this one, I pretty much could flip a coin between these 2 players. I had 2 players I think are super close.
And I went with probably the more unpopular opinion, and I took Ja Morant. Just because
I took him too.
Okay, good. The Grizzlies are 25-14 right now.
So good.
They are closer to the top 3 of Phoenix, Golden State, and Utah than they are to the rest of the pack, which is amazing to me.
Incredible.
I didn't see this coming at all. I mean, to be fair, it's not all Ja, and it would be really stupid for anyone to assume it's all Ja, because when Ja got hurt, they went on a winning streak. So it's clearly not just Ja.
Yeah, but really quickly, those fans that were saying that dumb shit that was like, get off the court because we're losing.
Not real fans.
No,
not real fans.
It's Ja Morant, guys. Stop it. Don't ever do that again.
But Ja Morant, the improvement from him last year to where I thought he was one of the most overrated players in the NBA, just based off of his name. I honestly didn't even think he was their best player last year. I thought Jonas Valanciunas was their most important player. This year, he is so drastically better. Like, the way he attacks the rim, but the biggest difference, he's always been a great passer. He's always been great at attacking the rim.
His
He's always been
shooting.
a pretty mediocre defender. His 3-point shooting, he's shooting 41%. Last year, he couldn't shoot whatsoever. He was like Ben Simmons out there. Like, you give him as much space as you want. Russell Westbrook type beat. Like, seriously, let him shoot. This year, you can't do that because he's shooting the ball so well. Like, it's amazing to me that he's over 40%, because I watched him last year and I was like, if he doesn't develop that shot, he's going to be one of the most overrated players for a long time. And he
developed it in 1 year.
It took him like 3 months. Like, take notes, Ben Simmons. Take notes.
Yeah, I mean, you know how much of a John Morant fan I have been throughout. Like, I love this man. I'm wearing his high school jersey in case any of you guys didn't notice what the jersey was. He's shooting. Here's the thing, right? It's not like he's shooting 40% on 2 attempts. He's shooting 40% on 4.3 attempts a game. He has somehow increased his attempts and increased his percentage, which just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yep.
But I mean, he's just ridiculous. He's 6'3". He's arguably one of the best finishers in the NBA, if not the best. Like, I don't know who else I'm taking as a guard. I'd say a guard who's finishing at the rim. Yeah, true. That's a good point. But and Kyrie's played 1 game. So so far this year, I'll take John Morant. No, but I mean, Memphis hit the absolute jackpot with John Morant as a franchise player. He's everything you would want out of a franchise player. He's a good mental guy. Just always happy guy. Like, he brings so much positivity to the team. He brings so much incredible leadership. I mean, if you would have told me that Desmond Bane would be averaging 17 a game this year, that I listen, Desmond Bane's been incredible, and no disrespect to Desmond Bane, but a lot of that has to do with John Morant. Just you put shooters around John Morant. Dylan Brooks averaging 19.
Dylan Brooks, oh my God, Dylan Brooks has been fantastic.
Desmond Bane 17, Jaren Jackson Jr. 16. These guys are getting such open looks because John Morant and Trae Young have that same effect where they just draw in the entire defense and they can kick it out whenever they want. They can get a floater, a smooth layup, a nifty crossover into a poster dunk for John Morant. This guy's he's incredible, man. I love John Morant. I mean, I know your roommate's a Grizzlies fan. I think he's just I think he's a generational talent. You don't just draft players like John Morant. I'm so happy we both have him as a starter because I just think he deserves it so much.
100%. And right now I'm eyeing, I know there's a long way to go in the season, but a potential 4-5 matchup of Grizzlies Mavericks, which it is right now, would be so much fun. I'm praying we get something along those lines. I just want to see Luka playing anyone but Kawhi in the playoffs because you can't beat Kawhi, and I want to see Luka go far.
Hey, whoever wins that series would go against possibly the Golden State Warriors. So that would be incredible 2 series. Let's move on to our forwards now.
Ja already proved himself Curry's father last year.
All right,
so.
yeah, stop that. All right, let's move on to our forwards. We might have a disagreement here just because some players listed as a forward who I don't know should be listed as a forward.
Interesting.
We'll start. LeBron James. He's a guaranteed all-star starter. Stop it. You know what I mean? He's LeBron James. We both were saying stuff about like LeBron last year, and that we both said he wasn't we could name, what was it? He wasn't a top 8.
I said
player or something.
No, I said I could name 5 better than him.
5, yeah.
And I can't name 5 better than him right now.
I don't think we can.
I don't know if you can name 3 better than him. Like honestly, like this season. So good. Season
might be one of his best.
I don't know. I don't know. Like Kevin Durant, maybe. Like that's like Giannis,
Jokic. Those guys are. It's so close. Okay. Like the top 5 is so close.
You can't go just based off of stats.
No.
But LeBron is averaging more points, rebounds, assists on higher field goal percentage and higher 3-point percentage than Steph Curry this year. Obviously, Curry has that incredible floor gravity that makes him such an incredible player. But raw statistic, LeBron clears Curry right now, which is insane.
He's been 29, 7, and 7, 1.7 steals, 1.1 blocks. Put him on the all-defensive team, NBA. Why not? Just do it. He's 37 years old. When he is not on the court. Remember when both. Hold on. Listen. We're 2 people. This is great. This is something I love about both of us when we talk basketball.
Yep.
We will gladly admit that we were wrong. And I believe both of us this offseason said, this is Anthony Davis's team. He is going to take them to the championship and win Finals MVP. Boy, were we mistaken, because LeBron James is arguably better than the best. This is probably his best season since 2016, 2017 when he came back from 3-1.
2018.
Oh yeah, 2018.
28.
Oh yeah.
He reminds me this season of 2018, Bron, where he literally
No
on
help.
offense is just carrying them so hard. I feel so bad for him. I didn't think I would. I never thought at this stage in his career I would feel bad for
Mickey Mouse ring.
I mean, to be fair, he constructed that whole team, and going for Westbrook was a horrible GM decision on his part. Like, Le GM is just as bad as
we both said it was a great idea.
Yeah, Le GM is in the same category as Jordan as a GM at this point. But I mean, I feel so bad for him because he is. I don't think I've seen a carry job from one player like this. Even like Curry last year. Like, to me, it's like very similar. It's crazy how good he is at this age, and how, like, to me, he's in my top 5 MVP right now. I don't care what you'll say about team record.
I agree.
Whatever. He still has the Lakers, I think, at 6 in the West. Like, it's not like they're that bad.
Yeah, I'm looking right now real quick because I know they're 20-19. They are they're avoiding the play-in.
Yeah, they're above 500. Like sky high expectations. But if Anthony Davis can come back healthy with LeBron playing at this level, they're still contenders. I don't care what anyone wants to say. Westbrook really screws this team up a lot. He makes them so much worse. Like, if you just removed his presence from the court, this team improves by a lot.
With Wayne Ellington on the court. Good job constructing your bench, LeBron, because man did a horrible job. Ken Bates.
Hey, Melo and Malik Monk were the two finds. Those were the two finds.
Malik Monk, we all knew that, though. I still find it so funny. There was that one post, or someone was talking about LeBron. When he was putting up that ridiculous stat line, they were 0-5. And he said something online that was like, we're missing our defensive players in Avery Bradley, Austin Reeves, Kent Bazemore, and Trevor Ariza. And I'm like, LeBron, do you understand what you did this offseason? Like, come on, man. But he's out here posting Taylor Horton Tucker's tweets and being like, the next GOAT, he's next up.
He gave up on Kuzma for Taylor Horton Tucker. Kuzma's balling right now.
Kuzma's a bucket, dude. But we don't have to. Kuzma, all-star in a couple of years.
All-star next year.
Mark it down.
Yeah, that's. I could talk about LeBron literally for an hour, and I'm gonna miss him so much when he's gone. He's so funny.
Man.
Like,
he is our generation's GOAT, and it's great.
This is off topic though, but like every time he tweets, like, it's just a gold mine of hilarious memes that come out of it. Like, we got like the La Scientist memes recently. Like, we literally. We got the La Sherlock Holmes 2 weeks ago when he was questioning Adam Silver. Like, this guy, not only is he the best player on the court of the last 20 years, he's probably the best off the court presence too. And I just love that about him. I'm going to miss him so much. I hope he keeps playing like this for the next 5 years because it's so fun to watch. It's like watching Tom Brady in his his Tampa Bay phase. That's what I feel like about watching LeBron now. I've always been like, I'm not a LeBron hater. I've just never been the biggest LeBron fan. But at this point in his career, I can firmly say that I love LeBron James. And
wow, I want to go back now to our podcast like 6-7 months ago and just put those two clips next to each other because that'd be amazing to watch. We covered LeBron. You're wearing the Lakers jersey, the Jerry West jersey. He's carrying on the Lakers legacies. I mean,
Jerry West, baby.
So now I'll let you go first because we might have a difference in the forward position. So I want to see who you have as your next
I think
forward.
We're clearly going to have a difference in the forward position here because my next forward is Nikola Jokic.
So is mine.
Okay.
Perfect. Wait, so
maybe we don't then.
So who, Jokic, wait, you know what? Yeah, I mean, Jokic is.
Do we even need to talk about Jokic's top?
I just want to talk about how incredible advanced statistics with Nikola Jokic is like nothing we've ever seen before. And he's doing this without Jamal Murray, without Michael Porter Jr. He's starting next to Jeff Green. He's starting next to Monte Morris, Will Barton.
Will Barton's their second best player. Second best player.
And he's been solid this year, but it's Will Barton. He was horrible last year.
Any team with Will Barton as their second best player is probably going to be a bottom 5 team in the NBA. And the Nuggets are an exception because of how good Jokic is.
I mean, Jokic is averaging 26, 14, 7, 1.5 steals, 1 block. These
His
numbers,
defense has improved so much this year too.
yes,
So much.
It's incredible what Jokic
Yep.
has done. You have Giannis as your MVP. I actually have Jokic as my MVP this year. I don't care what you want to say about the Nuggets being like the 8th seed. I had Steph Curry as my MVP last year for this same exact reason.
This year it's flipped. It's literally flipped.
It's
this
the
year,
exact
Curry and
Jokic.
Jokic.
This team would be worse than the Portland Trailblazers, and that says something. Without Nikola Jokic,
exactly.
I mean, there's nothing else we have to say. He's incredible. He's a He's just, I saw one of my favorite YouTubers. Sorry, this is a little off topic. One of my favorite YouTubers said he's like a little older than us, and he was like, I did not appreciate watching the Tim Duncan Spurs teams because they were considered like boring to watch, quote unquote. Don't do that with Nikola Jokic. When you just watch Nikola Jokic play, it's incredible how a man of his size and like just watch Nikola Jokic. That's all I have to say.
Yep. Yeah. Jokic, just unreal.
And so for your final forward position, I have Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I'm so happy. Baby.
That's crazy that both of us are at the same. He just went health and safety protocols though, so he might.
Dude, you want to hear a stat? Hold on, I saw it earlier today. So far this year, when Rudy Gobert is not on the court, the Utah Jazz have a defensive rating of 137. You know, like the team average is like 110 usually, even then. And then like Utah with Gobert is a top 2 defensive team this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, everyone wants to give him so much shit for the playoffs last year when Terrence Mann did everything against them and the Clippers beat them. But if you go back and actually watch those games, you will see that Mitchell, Clarkson, and Conley are getting beat off the dribble every single time by their man. So Gobert comes to help. And because it's Gobert in the paint, they have to dish it out. And because Gobert had to come in the paint, there's an open man in the corner, which is usually Terrence Mann.
Yep.
And that's how they got
that good of an NBA player.
That's how the Clippers got all their points in that series. And it had nothing to do with Gobert. It had to do with
Tyronn Lue out-coaching Quinn Snyder. That's all it had to do.
And that's all it was. The Jazz is because the Jazz guards are all incompetent on defense, and nothing has changed this year. They're still all just as bad on defense as they've been. They're all 3 are atrocious on defense. And Gobert is the best defensive player that we have seen since Hakeem Olajuwon. And Ben Wallace is the only one that I think holds a candle to him. But
I think
to me,
Dwight
those
Howard's
2,
close.
Dwight Howard is close, but I would take Gobert over. I mean, I just think that.
No, I was thinking like between Dwight and Ben Wallace, Wallace. I think that's close.
Those are your 3 best defenders of the last 20 years, and I think that's pretty.
And
firm.
LeBron James.
Draymond, I think, is actually the next one.
Oh yeah, but, yeah.
But I would still take those 3 ahead of him. But just Gobert is another example of the Bill Russell effect. Nobody even attacks the paint when he's down there, because they know of how incredible the defense is. Just watching Gobert clips is one of my favorite things to do, which you probably would hear nobody else ever say those words. But watching Rudy Gobert play defense is just magical because nobody wants to even go near him because of how good of a paint presence he is. And that's why the Jazz have been so good over the last 5-6 years. I've been saying this for years now. As great as Donovan Mitchell is, and we'll get to him in a minute. We'll get to him in a minute. You could replace him with any scoring guard in the NBA, and the Jazz would be just as good. There's 6 or 7 players you could replace Mitchell with, and they'd be just as good. There isn't a single player that you can replace Gobert with. He's so unique in that regard of how good of a defensive player he is. He clears everybody else other than Draymond. Draymond's the only one in the NBA today that is even remotely close to Rudy Gobert's defensive prowess. I could go on for so long about how good on defense he is. But on offense, too, we'll get there.
Because 16 points a game this year, 15.5.
Not even that. Also shooting he's leading the league in field goal percentage for the 3rd out of the last 4.
Isn't it like 72%?
Yeah, 72%. This would be the 3rd time in the last 4 years that he's led the league in field goal percentage. He only takes high percentage shots. And his pick and roll is insane, too. The Jazz, for the 2nd straight year, the number 1 pick and roll team in the NBA. And he creates so much for his guards off of that pick and roll. Gobert I don't care what you say. To me, he's top 10 in MVP right now. It'd be a little overzealous to put him top 5, but to me he's that 6 to 8 along with like DeRozan. Gobert's having an incredible season, and it's time he gets his respect. Seeing him as the 9th highest voted player out of the Western forwards is just it made me so sad.
And he's probably going to be the last pick in the draft as well, just because
no
one respects him like that.
They won't vote him in to start, and then he'll probably be like the last player picked, like it was last year. Like, now it's so sad, but he should start.
Yeah. I quickly want to have this talk because I think this is an interesting talk. So we both have Jokic and Gobert in our starting lineup. That most likely will probably not happen because my guess is Gobert will come off the bench.
Yep.
Who do you think will take that other forward spot in the West? If say Gobert gets moved to this, like they have 2 centers, Gobert's the center off the bench.
See, this is where it gets interesting because this is where the West is literally after those top guys is all guards, and like the forward pool is really weak. So actually, it's kind of funny. On my bench, I have obviously my 2 guards, 3 forwards. Both my wild cards are guards.
Me too.
And then 4 of my 5 alternates are guards.
Like, I have my injury replacement. Guards. My injury replacement is someone that I just wanted to talk about, so I have him there. Okay. I probably wouldn't actually put him there, but I did anyway. But yeah, literally have 4 guards.
So do you want to talk about do you want to talk about forwards, bench, and then we'll get to guards after?
Yeah, because I feel like forwards. Yeah, because guards.
So mine would be Draymond Green.
That's who I have too. I have Draymond as my number 1 forward off the bench.
Yep.
Me too. I can go for hours. I mean, well, you can go for hours about Gobert. I'll do the same thing for Draymond Green because this man, we're not winning those championships without Draymond Green. I don't care what people say. It's crazy to say, right, that me and you might have an all-star starter averaging 8 points a game, but that's just how great Draymond Green is this way. We're not going to see anything like him, for a very long time. He's averaging 8 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 1.4 steals, 1.2 blocks. You probably have Gobert as your defensive player of the year. I think him and Draymond, it's such a toss-up.
To me, you could give either of them. I think they'll give it to Draymond because the Warriors are the best team in the West. the best team in the league, and because Gobert has had a monopoly on it the last few years. To me, either one deserves it.
But if you look outside of the Warriors bench, just look at their starting lineup. Steph Curry and Jordan Poole. Steph Curry has obviously improved in his defense this year. Jordan Poole is probably a Trae Young defender. He is not a good defender at all.
Mm-hmm.
Wiggins has definitely improved on his defense a lot, so I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that. And Kevon Looney is kind of just the guy next to Draymond Green. Draymond has and this team is like a top 2 defensive team with the Utah Jazz in the league. I think they might be number 1.
I think they're 1 in Utah's too.
Draymond Green and the Draymond Green impact is incredible, like absolutely incredible. Our whole offense runs through him. If you watch our offense, like he facilitates everything. Steph Curry does he gets all these open looks because of Draymond doing what he does, and he brings up the ball. He sets the off-ball screens. He hustles for every single loose ball. He gets under every offensive player's skin. I mean, he's an incredible player, and I'm so happy that he's getting the love this year that he deserves, because I think he's just such an incredible player. And it's just crazy that we're talking about a guy averaging 8 points a game in the All-Star starting lineup possibly, because that's just how impactful Draymond Green is on the court for the Warriors.
His efficiency is what's kind of separating him this year from the past couple of years, where he's been doing this every year for the last couple of years. But he's shooting 53 or 54%.
53.7.
Yep. Where he usually is hovering around 45, right?
Career high this year.
Yep. So being able to shoot nearly 10% better than his career average is insane. And that's just in addition to how good his defense is. This is arguably his best defensive year as well, or one of his 2016. He was incredible on defense too.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is peak Draymond Green at this moment. I think everyone who said he was declining the last 2 years is absurd. He's literally just taken on a different role in their offense where he just doesn't shoot the ball anymore. And people seem to equate that as he's not as good anymore. It's absurd. Draymond Green is, if they don't give it to Gobert, yes, he would be my next guy in.
Yeah, the next guy I have, because we've talked about Draymond and Gobert a lot defensively. I have Paul George as my other forward coming off the bench. I believe you
Yep,
probably
he's
would
my
have.
next
I
one.
don't know who else you would put coming off the bench besides Paul George. He was a top 5 MVP candidate for the first month of the season. The Clippers, I believe, are sitting at the 7th seed right now, and Eric Bledsoe's their second best player on the team. I mean,
no, Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson's having a great year.
Reggie Jackson, true.
Put some respect on Reggie Jackson.
I mean, Paul George has been incredible. I've loved Paul George since his Indiana days, and I love seeing him succeed this year. 25 points a game, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. The highest minutes per game on the team by 5 minutes, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. And he's starting next to Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Eric Bledsoe, and Zubac. And they're better than LeBron, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony Davis.
Yep.
I mean, Paul George has been incredible this year. There's no other way to put it.
To me, he reminds me, not in terms of being a player, just in terms of the situation. He reminds me of Jimmy Butler in the East, whereas in he's a lock to be an all-star, but I don't think he's quite there at the starter level yet. But but he's 100% on the team, 100%. Yeah. He'll be a reserve. I don't see any case for him to start unless people just really hate on the defensive players of Gobert and Draymond, and because they make their name on defense, they don't get the recognition, so people would give it to George. I don't think that's going to happen, but I mean his efficiency is still pretty poor, but it's not really his fault because the defenses really only have to worry about him and nobody else on that team. So let it slide. Paul George, definitely an all-star this year, 100%.
Yep. And then you have one more forward as well on your team.
And I think this was also a lock to me. I couldn't think of anyone else that even deserves it. I think Karl Anthony Towns is 100% all-star this year.
Wow, we're 8 for 8 right now when it comes to this stuff. Yeah, I mean, Cat's averaging, before you can talk about him, because I know your mind has switched on Karl Anthony Towns this year, because we'll get into that, but he's averaging 24. I'll round up from 10 and 3.5 with 1 steal and 1.5 blocks. Look at those defensive stats finally going up.
Yep, and not even just the stats too, but it's just the eye test. You watch Cat on defense, and he's so much better than he was a couple years ago. He's just in the right spots now. It's not even anything other than IQ. That's all it is. He just knows where to be now. Whereas 3 years ago, someone would beat their man off the dribble. Cat would be on the other side of the court, not even paying attention. Now, Cat makes the right transition, gets down there, and can block a shot, force him to pass out, something like that. He's improved tremendously in that area, and I think that's part of the reason why Minnesota is definitely going to be. I think they're 100% going to be a play-in team this year, which makes me so happy because I was really high on Minnesota this year, so I really hope
I had them as the A seed in my preseason power rankings, which I'm happy about.
But what you also have to look at with Karl Anthony Towns is he's the guy I was mentioning in the West that's closest to a 50-40-90 right now.
Yeah,
free throw, he's not quite there. 83% free throw, he's not quite going to cut it. But 50% from the field, I think 42% from 3. He is not lying when he says he's the best big man shooter in the NBA and arguably the best big man shooter ever. I'm not going to disagree with that. He's a fantastic 3-point shooter. He's overall a fantastic offensive player. He can score the ball very efficiently. He's a pretty good rebounder for a center. I'd say that's actually probably his weakest attribute now that his defense has improved. But another thing that he's improved a lot is his playmaking, which he didn't have any semblance of playmaking his first couple of years in the NBA. Now, when he draws the doubles, he finds that guy on the opposite side, whether it's D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, and he's got the guys on his team now. They can make those shots. This isn't Jarrett Culver and Josh Okogie anymore. He actually has decent players around him, and it's kind of showing. To me, this is one of the best seasons of his career, and I'm really happy seeing the way he's playing right now. I used to be a Cat hater. I still think he's kind of a whiny bitch at times, but you know what? He's a good player. He's earned my respect.
That's great. Yeah. So those are the only forwards that I have for pretty much until we talk about quote unquote snubs. Or I might have snuck one in there for injury replacement, but we'll talk about that. Maybe a previous Minnesota Timberwolf, but we'll talk about that.
I know what you're talking about.
Let's go to our guard plays. So the player that I was actually up in the air about I was choosing between John Morant and Donovan I had Donovan Mitchell as the other player that I was choosing.
Really? Oh,
between
interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
I like Donovan Mitchell. I have him as one of my 2 guard spots.
The way I was looking at it is Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz for years now, I think this is going on like third year in a row, I'd say, is statistically the best offense in the league. And Donovan Mitchell is the number one option on the best offense in the league. And as much as you want to say, like, I know you are a huge Rudy Gobert fan, and Rudy Gobert definitely does have a huge part. And Quinn Snyder's offense has a huge part of it because putting just shooters around Rudy Gobert, it's a successful way. But when it comes down to crucial situations, when it comes down to get me a bucket, Donovan Mitchell is one of the best in the league. And we could still battle right now if it's between him and Devin Booker or Zach LaVine on who's the best of the three guys. Yeah. But I just feel like you cannot go wrong with Donovan Mitchell. He's averaging 26-5 and 1.5 steals this year. Mm-hmm. And when you're just the best player on the best offense in the league, it's very hard for me to not have you as a starter. I would love to see Gobert and Mitchell both be starters in the All-Star game. I think that would be great. It won't happen, but I think it would be so awesome to see that happen. But give Donovan Mitchell his respect because when this team needs a bucket in clutch time, he's one of the best isolation players in the league. I've watched a little bit more Jazz than I have in recent years, just because last year I was rooting so heavily against the Jazz because I had that bet with the Phoenix Suns and all that good stuff. And then this year they're battling with the Warriors, so it's hard for me to watch them again this year. But Jordan Clarkson has been solid, but there's just such a huge jump with Donovan Mitchell. I wish that there was like a different point guard than Mike Conley, who only averages 5 assists a game. I'd love to see him with a real playmaking point guard next to him because I feel like that would just thrive. I know he's not a good defensive player. As you say, Donovan Mitchell is not a good defensive player. He's 6'1" as a shooting guard. Like, we can all agree on that. But when it comes to just straight up bucket getting and the best offensive player on the best offensive team in the league, I was choosing between him and Ja as my all-star starter. I gave it to Ja because, I mean, I love Ja Morant, but I have Donovan Mitchell actually as my first guard off the bench.
I have him as my second guard off the bench. I didn't consider him starting. My opinions on Donovan Mitchell are the exact same as they were last year. He's a great scorer in probably the best situation he could possibly be in the NBA.
Yep.
Simple as that. Like, you can't hold it against him that he's in such a good situation. He's making the most of it. He's playing fantastic. The Jazz are just as good as they've always been. Not going to hold that against him. I just think that you put pretty much any of those other good shooting guards in the same position, and they're doing exactly what Mitchell's doing. So, yeah, but you're right. Probably a top 3 to 5 bucket getter in the NBA, no doubt about it. A huge reason why the Jazz offense, a pretty big reason why the Jazz offense is as good as it is. 100% deserves a spot, and he'll get one. I think he'll 100% get one. I don't see him starting though.
I want to see who you're. Yeah, I'd be surprised too. I just wanted to give him his respect, just as a player. Yeah. I want to see who your first guard is off the bench now.
Luka Doncic.
I have him. He's my second. He's my second guard off the bench.
Okay, I had Luka starting at first, and then I put Ja over Luka. I don't get it, man. Close. I don't get. People be hating on Luka these days as if averaging 26, 8, and 9 in his third season's bad. And sorry that's not as good as when he was averaging 28, 9, and 9 2 years ago. But people's expectations, I guess, have just gotten too high for him. He's in the exact same situation as he's been the last 2 years. Nothing has changed around him, and he's the same player he has been the last 2 years. Like, I don't understand why people think he's all of a sudden going to make a jump when he is literally in the same players around, different offense, different coach, but same players around him. And I don't know. He's Luka Doncic. He's still probably the most fun player to watch in the NBA besides like maybe Curry. He can do everything on offense. He's carrying this Mavericks team. They are so much worse without him on the floor, and it's so easy to tell. His gravity is insane. He draws so many doubles. He's the reason Dorian Finney-Smith has a job in the NBA. He's the reason Tim Hardaway Jr. is a starter in the NBA.
Dwight Powell's a starter.
People, I think, yeah, right. People are just getting used to him doing this, and the fact that they haven't made any improvement since his second year there. He hasn't improved, and they haven't improved. People are just kind of getting sick of it. But like, you look at what he does, you watch him play, you look at the numbers, everything just shows that he is good enough to be an all-star starter. The only thing I'm giving it to Ja Morant just because of the jump Ja has made. And the Grizzlies are better than the Mavericks, although I think if you swapped Ja and Luka, I think the Grizzlies would be a top 3 team in the NBA. Like, I still think Luka is a significantly better player than Ja Morant. Yeah. I just think Ja deserves the starter spot more this season than Luka does. But, I mean, if they give Luka a starter spot, I would not be mad.
I mean, who's another player that, for the first couple of years of his career didn't have any help and was putting up great numbers and people started thinking bad things? It's literally LeBron James. I mean, like
I was gonna say I was
25,
thinking
25. Oh,
I
and
was thinking
Jordan.
Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
That's what I
I
was
mean,
going through my head.
yeah, they're both. Trust me, there's all three of them are the very
Yeah.
similar situations throughout their career. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna look back on those games against the Clippers and career games, like his step back three and everything like that, and people are gonna like forget how good he was because they're just thinking, oh, the Mavericks aren't a bone. They haven't made it out of the first round in 2-3
Yeah.
years now. Why
Yeah.
haven't they made it out? What is Luka doing wrong?
Yeah.
Nothing. Luka's not
Nothing
doing
at
anything
all.
wrong. He's playing next to bad players, and I hate to.
Yeah.
Brandon Knight came onto this team and is averaging 10 points a game. Like,
Yeah.
Brandon Knight, I that's just crazy to think of.
Shout out
While we're
Jalen Brunson.
yes,
Jalen Brunson's the only player on that team besides Luka that I think is anything better than trash. Sorry, Porzingis. I think trash.
That's funny. That's funny because I was actually gonna say I want to give credit to Porzingis because I think he's had a much better season this year than he has in previous years. I've been very impressed by the way that Jason Kidd has ran the team. He's made Porzingis more of like a focal point. Now, obviously, Luka is the focal point because it's Luka Doncic. But I've been impressed because I was an advocate for Porzingis to get moved this past offseason. I was like, I really wanted to see Porzingis on a new team and see if he could put up similar numbers without Luka Doncic. But this year I've been impressed. I know you just said you're not a fan. You haven't been a fan of Porzingis, but I've been impressed with how Porzingis plays, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think people are scared to drive in on him, and he's looked more like, I don't know how to put it. He's looked more intimidating. Like he looks more ready to defend, if that makes sense, compared to previous years.
All right. Yeah, I guess I'll take your word for it. I mean, I've watched them a little bit. I haven't watched the Mavericks just a ton. I've probably watched 3 or 4 games this year, and every game I've watched, I feel like Porzingis is just absolutely useless out there. And I don't know. Maybe you've just watched some better games than I have, but his statistics don't really jump out to me. He's pretty much the same statistically as he was last season, just worse efficiency. And watching him, I'm just not blown away at all. I'm blown away by how bad he is, but that's like it.
That's fair. So moving,
I don't know. Maybe he'll turn it around.
Okay. Yeah, we'll move on from. So it's funny. We have the same exact starters and reserves.
Top 5.
What are the odds of that?
So I think we're gonna differ on the wild card.
I don't. Maybe we will. Maybe we will. I don't know.
I do.
So I'll start. I'll start with my reserves.
Okay.
I have 2 players that play for the same team.
Paul and Booker.
I have Paul and Booker as my next 2 reserves. I from the face that you're
finally
giving me,
disagree.
We finally disagree.
We have one disagreement.
I'm interested to see because we'll talk about Paul and Booker because obviously they both deserve to be here. I believe neither of us would be mad if Paul and Booker made it.
I'll tell you, Chris Paul is my top wild card, so I have him.
Oh my God, we have another year of Devin Booker being the injury replacement.
And Devin Booker is my top guy who didn't make it. My number 13,
injury replacement.
Devin Booker.
3 years in a row, Devin Booker is the injury replacement, and he'll still get drafted before Rudy Gobert. But no,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk Chris Paul first. Chris Paul is having. You could make the argument once again that he's a top 10 most valuable player for his team, and he's just as old as LeBron. He's a little younger, obviously, because it's LeBron. But I mean, he's averaging the reason that I almost actually took. Because I have one more player that I have very, very close to these 2 guys. And I'm pretty sure that's probably who you'll have because we're both very high on this player. The only reason why I was very close to taking Paul almost out of it instead of Devin Booker, which to me, Devin Booker was the lock of the 2, which is interesting because you don't have him there. But it's just because Chris Paul's 3-point shooting this year is so abysmal. He's shooting like the worst he's shot from. He's shooting 31% from 3 this year. Yeah. And that's like the worst we've seen from Chris Paul in years. And obviously he's getting older. I don't expect him to keep up this productivity for much longer, even though he probably will because it's Chris Paul. But he's averaging 14, 10, and 2. He's still one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, why this team is winning so many games. I just gave the edge to Devin Booker because I've been very, very impressed by just how Devin Booker has played. I know his mid-range shot has been worse this year, but his 3-point shot is like one of the most efficient it's been in his career. I mean, he's averaging 24, 5, and 5. I've loved Devin Booker for a while. I think he's a great player. I wouldn't be mad if you I would like to see who you have replacing one of them, but I think it's a toss up for who's the better all-star, if it's Devin Booker or Chris Paul.
So yeah, I got Booker 13, and it's not that he doesn't deserve it. He totally does.
Yeah.
It's just this is his worst statistical season of the last 4 or 5 years of his, and it's not against him. It's only slight. It's a very little amount. But it is. He's not doing quite as well this year as he has in the last couple of years. And personally, I will always take the guy who is the leader, the playmaker, the defender.
Yeah, you'll take the Rudy Gobert over the Donovan Mitchells.
I'll take the whole package over the guy who's the one-dimensional scorer.
That's fair.
I think Chris Paul is more valuable to the Suns than Devin Booker is. I think they're not going to be great without either of them. I think they need both. I just think Paul is slightly more valuable. So I gave Chris Paul the edge.
Yeah.
And Booker will make tons of all-star games as the rest of his career. But I would rather put in someone who I think has jumped the gun and become an all-star level player. So that left me with Booker as my 13. So that the guy who jumps up and made it into mine is DeJounte Murray.
Oh, I'm happy you have him there because I wanted to talk to him.
DeJounte Murray has become one of my 3 to 5 favorite players in the NBA. The Spurs are probably the team I've watched the most this year besides the Sixers. I cannot get enough of watching DeJounte Murray. Like, this guy is so good and he gets no recognition for it. I hate it. He's averaging, I think, 19, 9, and 9, 2 steals. Yep. He's the leader of this team. He's the best defender on this team. He's the playmaker of this team. He's probably their best rebounder. That's not like a center. Like
he's only averaging 0.4 less than Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, like I don't understand. But like you watch him and he's clearly the best player for the Spurs in pretty much every aspect of the game. Yeah. And you can tell he's their leader, their vocal leader. He's like the guy for them. He's what, 24?
The Spurs.
He's like 24, right? He can't be much older.
He's 25.
25. Like, I don't know. And the Spurs are a play-in team this year. That could change.
7 games below 500 and they're a play-in team.
That could change. But, he deserves it. And obviously they've gone on a bit of a losing streak since he's been out. So
since he's been out?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I was wrong. I had Keldon Johnson as the guy who was going to break out and be the all-star for them this year. Keldon Johnson's been fantastic. Yes. Actually leads the league in 3-point shoot percentage, or at least he did a week ago. That might have changed by now. But Keldon Johnson's had a very good year. Not really the jump I thought he would take. But DeJounte Murray, to me, I had to include him. I had to. I think he's definitely got the stats, the wins, kind of. To me, he's in. I can't disagree. Booker ahead of him. I think Booker has a great case as well. Yeah. I would rather see more representation from a different team, representation of a new guy who's jumping up into the All-Star, rather than Booker, who's probably having the worst season of his career statistically.
Yeah, to me, it's like when I was looking at like a team like the Celtics, they couldn't have 2 All-Stars because they're bad. The Suns have the exact same record at the moment as the Golden State Warriors. So to me, it made more sense to put 2 Suns rather than a 10-seed player. But that's not discrediting DeJounte Murray. You put DeJounte Murray on the Suns, maybe they're even better than they are right now. He is just
him and Chris Paul. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but they both need the ball in their hands. So
that's true. No, yeah. I love DeJounte. I think he's just been a fantastic player. He's like Russell Westbrook with IQ. Like literally, he's like
with efficiency.
Like with efficiency and IQ. He's just a remarkable player. He's a player that San Antonio is going to love for years to come. He's someone that, and my favorite thing about him is he's someone that you can easily build a franchise around. Like, to me, this might sound like a stupid kind of comparison, but I could see Tyrese Halliburton being that kind of player for the Kings in the future. Like, these are just players that have high IQ basketball that eventually the stats will just come. And the stats are coming this year for DeJounte Murray, and I'm so happy about it because, like, him and Darius Garland, they're both in, like, I think they're both very similar players, like just that they lead their teams in their own way. They do what they want, and they're the best player for their team. And you can see what happens when they're not on their, like when they don't play. Yeah, shout out to DeJounte Murray. I had him as 14 just because I wanted to give some love to my number 13. But no, yeah, DeJounte Murray is a fantastic player, and I would love to see him make the All-Star game. Like, I would be, trust me, if he made it over like Chris Paul or Devin Booker, I'd honestly be very happy because I love DeJounte Murray, and I'd love to see the Spurs be represented in the All-Star game. Probably won't happen, but we'll see.
So we literally went 23 for 24 on who we have in the All-Star games.
That's crazy impressive. Honestly, if I probably would have had him as my 13, but I just wanted to shout out Andrew Wiggins, man. One of the best two-way players in the league. He is. I have him as my IR replacement. Honestly, Andrew Wiggins has more of an All-Star case than Anthony Davis this year. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think that's maybe people will disagree with me on that, but
I have 12 players and 5 alternates, and Anthony Davis is not on there at all for me.
Is Andrew Wiggins on it?
Andrew Wiggins is my 5th alternate, so he was my last guy.
I'll take it.
And I was honestly just gonna do 4 alternates, but I wanted to mention him. I figured you'd already have a lot to say about him.
Yeah.
If he makes it, I won't be
as an injury replacement. That'd be so cool.
I won't be upset. I just think there's more guys who deserve it than him. He's had a great year. He's averaging 21, 4 and 4. He's much more efficient. He's a pretty good defender on such a good team. I don't think Golden State needs 3 All-Stars.
No, I as a Warriors fan, I don't think we do either.
Curry and Draymond are locks. So to me, Wiggins could get in. I'd be like, okay, that's fine. He deserves it, but he just seems like on the lower end of guys who deserve it for me.
That's fair. I just love how much he's turned the narrative on him. Like, he was like that guy that was just like empty stats. He's not living up to his number one, being drafted number one. He's still not living up to being drafted number one. I'm okay with that. But Andrew Wiggins he's such a good shot creator. There's not a shot that Andrew Wiggins cannot make on the court. And that's the one thing I love. He's also like a Donovan Mitchell. He's in the perfect situation to succeed. And that's why the reason I wanted to give him credit is because I just don't think he'll ever be like an all-star caliber player ever again in his career. So I just wanted to talk about him, and hopefully he'll make it that one time, like a Fred VanVleet kind of player. But in 31 minutes, averaging 19, 4 and 3. He locks up the other teams. Next to Draymond, it's hard not to be a good defender, but Andrew Wiggins has been a very, very good defender. His IQ has gotten better. I just want to give credit to Andrew Wiggins. I think he's had a fantastic year, and why not let Andrew Wiggins, a guy who had such a horrible narrative around him, make an All-Star game one time in his career?
Yeah. He's got a case for it this year for sure.
So let's hear we'll go through your reserves.
My other alternates. So Devin Booker was my top one, and then Andrew Wiggins was my bottom one. So the 3 in between that I wanted to mention, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It pains me. Because I voted for him on pretty much every single one of my ballots. So going through it and actually making it and realizing that I wouldn't put him on the team is really, really sad for me. Because I'm like, damn, I've been voting for him every single time. It's just not there. The Thunder are one of the worst teams in the league. He's actually having a worse season this year than he did last year. And last year I thought he was a snub. This year, I think he's just going to be the last guy cut, probably one of the last guys cut. But the funny thing is, if you look at how bad the Thunder are without him versus when they have him, it's another one of those instances like Van Vliet or Garland, where these are different teams when he's not on the floor. The Thunder lost by 75 without him and Giddey that one game.
And Josh Giddey. Don't forget, Josh Giddey should be an All-Star.
Yeah, I said him and Giddey. Giddey's the next Larry Bird, but we'll get to that another day.
Mix Giddey and Garrison Matthews, and you literally have Larry Bird.
Exactly. But Shai's just very inefficient this year on a bad team. Hard to put him over some of those other guys, but I definitely wanted to mention him, and I would actually be kind of happy if he got in because I'm a huge fan of his. I would take him over 99% of young players in the NBA today. But that aside, my next guy is Damian Lillard.
I have him as a snub as well.
He's having a very down year by his standards,
stats.
But he's still averaging 24, 4 and 7, which are good numbers. The Trailblazers are just terrible. I don't think they deserve an All-Star this year. Lillard's efficiency is awful this year. Raw statistics alone are the only reason why I would consider him. And then Anthony Edwards was my last guy. I just want to
Oh,
talk
that's
about
cool.
him because Anthony Edwards is having a great year. He won't get an All-Star selection because the Timberwolves don't deserve to. But he's averaging, I think, 22 points per game on pretty good efficiency, especially compared to what he did last year. I think he's shooting around 46% this year, which is really good for a second-year guard.
Yeah.
He's doing everything that the Timberwolves would expect for a number one pick in his second year. Soon, I think he'll be on that tier with Mitchell, Booker, Brown, Levine, those guys. I think another year, and he'll be right with those guys. And we'll be seeing him as a consistent all-star pretty soon in the future. At the moment, though, I think he just gets edged out by a couple of other guys who are having better seasons.
That's fair. I had Anthony Davis's name mentioned just because of raw statistics. Like literally that's it. His raw statistics are still 20 and 12, 20, 12 and 4 or something like that. Still great raw statistics, but impact wise, I don't think he deserves to be named. I had the same guys. I just had DeJounte Murray instead of Devin Booker named. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, when it comes to like, hey, if I'll say this, if the Portland Trailblazers had traded away Damian Lillard, we might have been talking about Anthony Simons as an all-star snub right now because he is a walking bucket. And I don't know what the Trailblazers will probably talk about in another podcast because we've reached the hour 40-minute mark and we just finished talking about our guys. But I'd love to see what the Portland Trailblazers would do if they just put defenders and shooters around Anthony Simons. I just think that'd be such a cool team. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, do you have anything else to say when it comes to your all-star? But like, is there a player that we did not name that like you've been putting on bids or anything like that just for fun? Like, you know what I mean by that?
Well, I've put DeJounte Murray and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as my Western guards in every single ballot I've cast. I kind of switch around some of the other guys, but for the most part, it's the guys on my list that are lower down. I think I've put Gobert in pretty much every single one because nobody else will give him votes, so it might as well be me. I've put Sabonis in quite a few, even though I had him as like my last guy out. I would love to see Sabonis on there. I've been putting Jared Allen quite a bit. I put Garland quite a bit.
I put Garland
Sixer
in everyone.
The Sixer in me puts Embiid and Tyrese Maxey a lot. I got to give some love to Maxey. I put Van Vliet quite a bit. The ones I always struggle with is the Western forwards because it's either like the obvious guys like Gobert, Jokic, LeBron, or like guys who just simply don't deserve it. So I've been putting like Gobert and Draymond in most of them because I feel like they're guys who wouldn't be getting many votes. And then I switch around that last spot. But now for the most part, we've covered it all.
Yeah, I've been putting. Go for it.
This is off topic, so you can go what you want to do first.
Okay, I'm just was gonna say I've been putting Garland in every single one of mine. Just because I love Darius Garland. I've been putting OG Anunoby actually in all of mine because I love OG and I want him to make an all-star game at some point. I think I've also put Miles Bridges in some of them because he's just been a fun player to watch. And I feel
I like Bridges.
Yeah, like why not? And then I put Draymond and Wiggins as my two forwards, and I think every single one I've done. And then I also I've done DeJounte and I've done Ja just because I want Ja to be a starter. So I've been putting Ja as that guy. And then I think I've been going back and forth between Jokic and Gobert just because I want Gobert to be the starter, but I want Jokic to be the captain. So I've been going back and forth to see which of them will get it.
I will say what I was going to say a few minutes ago is last year was such a missed opportunity that we didn't get Jokic and Embiid as our captains. Like that would have been the most fun all-star vote of all time.
Yeah.
And like we may never get the chance. Like I hope Jokic gets it this year, but like I'm pretty sure it's going to be Curry and Durant, which like I'm fine with. But I mean, how fun would a Jokic Embiid draft be? That would literally be like comedy. It would be so good.
Even like a Jokic and like Giannis. Like I would love to see them too. Even like
that would be awesome.
Those foreign guys deserve it. Like I'd love to see. I just want to see. I'm excited to see the draft.
Embiid would just be roasting everyone while he's drafting them.
Dude, that video of him going to Tyrese Maxey like, you are trash. You shot 2 for 11. I love him.
I can tell you he would not be drafting Karl Anthony Towns.
Imagine
or he would draft him just so that he wouldn't play him.
No, he drafts him and at the end he'd be like, I want to trade him. I don't want him on my team. I just drafted him because I wanted. Like he would do something stupid like that.
Yeah.
Hey, but that wraps up the first Backcourt Press podcast that we've had in a very long time. We will be back to being a lot more consistent with this coming very soon. I know both of us were getting back into school. I know you're not back yet. I'm online for the first couple weeks, so we'll find time to do this though.
I got nothing but free time right now.
Exactly.
I got
So,
nothing but free time.
yeah, we're here. We're here to stay. And we're back. Backcourt Press is back. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to Will Hoffman and Miles for commenting. I didn't put it on the screen, but thank you guys for commenting on the YouTube channel. And you can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the I-95 Sports Network. Also, big shout out to, if anyone's watching, the Eastern Observer just created which is the thing that I write for Temple Owls basketball. If that's this college I go to. We just created a new website, very cool new website. If you guys want to go check it out, I've been writing a lot there, so it's been fun to write for the Temple Owls. We just won a crucial conference game against UCF. Articles coming out tomorrow for that, so stay tuned.
Wow.
But
imagine your college team winning games. I can't.
Yeah, okay. What are we? Second worst in the conference now instead of worst, so don't worry about it.
Cuse is right there in the ACC.
Exactly. Thank you all for joining. This has been a blast, as it always is. And Backcourt Press, we will see you all in the next one. See ya.